The opinions shared in this podcast are those of the host and are not meant to reflect the positions of NAMI Oklahoma or licensed mental health professionals. If you have questions or concerns about your own mental health, please reach out to a qualified expert. And remember, if you're ever in a crisis, you can call or text 988.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Mindful Moments with NAMI NextGen. Today, we're going to be talking about relationships. I'm Anna Bennett, and I brought with me a very special guest. This is Mikayla Maiahy, and if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, go right ahead.
Hi, I am Mikayla Maiahy. I am a graduate at the University of Central Oklahoma. I got degrees in history and women's gender and sexuality studies, minors in political science and sociology. And although I am not a part of the NextGen Council, I am married to someone who's on the NAMI Scout. So I would like to think I know a little bit about relationships and mental health.
So, like I said, today we're going to be discussing relationships, the good, the bad, the ugly, and not just romantic relationships, friendships too. We're going to be talking about red flags, codependency, and things to look out for. Before we get started with our discussion, I just want to give a few quick facts about the cycle of abuse. The cycle of abuse includes several phases, starting with the tension building, the incident, reconciliation, and calm. This is a repetitive cycle that will repeat every single time the abuse occurs, both in physical and emotional. Roughly 50% of women and 40% of men in Oklahoma have been victims of intimate partner abuse or intimate partner violence. In many cases, the physical abuse stems from prolonged emotional or verbal abuse. So our first question, it's a rough one to start, but how does gaslighting and manipulation erode your sense of self in a relationship?
I haven't personally gone through it as far as a romantic relationship, but I have gone through gaslighting, manipulation, and other relationships. And for me personally, I struggle with anxiety and depression, but I also struggle with OCD. And I think that when I was in a relationship where there was a lot of gaslighting and manipulation, it eroded my senses in the sense that the OCD was fueled by the gaslighting. Because if you have somebody that is saying like all of these things that make you not trust yourself, and OCD already makes it to where you can't really trust your brain, and you're constantly like having to build up that trusted confidence on a daily basis, it struggles. You struggle with like a perception of reality, essentially, of like, is this gaslighting? Can I rely on this person? Can I even rely on myself? I knew this to be true, but what if it's not? And it just, you kind of go into this internal struggle and this cycle that just keeps going unless you find means of help, find means of getting out of that relationship. But that's my personal.
No, I definitely agree. I think too, the longer that goes on, the harder it is to break out of that cycle.
Yes.
So it's the same thing of like, especially with someone who is capable of doing things like that. And many of those people are narcissists.
Oh,
are so good at convincing you all of these things yourself that like you can't tell the difference between fact and fiction anymore. All of these things that this person is telling you or, or gaslighting you about or manipulating you about, you start to believe yourself, which is why I think it is so hard for so many victims of abuse to leave those relationships or seek help because you can't, the lines get blurred.
yeah. And it's even harder whenever, depending on like the circle of people around you, because what made it difficult for me was that this was in a situation regarding my family, and there were all of these people on the outside who were agreeing with them.
Yep.
And so the more people that you have that either believe that person or they are kind of contributing to that abuse, then it just, your sense of reality gets even worse because then you don't really have a person to soundboard off of.
Oh, yeah.
You feel like you are very isolated. You feel like you are very alone because then it's not just like, oh, one person is lying. It's like there's more people that are lying. So it messes with your reality.
Yeah, I especially think too in situations like that and people who are capable of that sort of thing are also, they know well enough how to isolate you from your support systems.
Oh, yeah.
So the more that they pull you out and the more that, they take you away from people that they know would ground you,
Yes.
the better your tactics are and the more you sit.
Absolutely. So, in covering the isolation and the fear and the change of perception of reality, how do you break out of this cycle?
Yeah, I think that is one of the hardest things to do. And, I'm speaking from personal experience. And to preface, because I'm public about my relationship, it is not my current relationship. I love him dearly. He's great.
But you're both in good relationships.
In certain times in my life, I have dealt with it. And that is the hardest thing out. And it's not necessarily like a once and done type of thing. I think with abuse, like people don't realize how many times the general population that goes through abuse goes back before they finally leave for the last time. And when I was going through this, all of my friends were, and my family as well, were talking to me about this for months and months and months. And I just wouldn't do it because I couldn't see it myself, or I didn't want to see it because I knew that getting out of that and healing from it is an uphill battle.
Yeah.
So I think until you genuinely want something to change, and I hate to say it like this, but like you got to hit rock bottom at some point to finally wake you up. And it turns into a positive thing. But I think unless you want to change and you are actively making those choices to make those changes in your lives, because like at this point, all you have left is yourself and your own devices. And you've got to find that sort of strength. They need to pull yourself out and get help and seek professional help, in my opinion, is what helps me. I have been an avid therapy believer for my whole life. I went to therapy all through high school, and then I got to college and it stopped, and I fell into like similar habits. So getting back into therapy and, having that space to talk about what I was going through without someone that wasn't directly involved in my life was incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
And then also too, like this sounds so simple, but making a pro and con list, or just writing the things down that have bothered you and looking at that list and seeing how massive it is, I think can be such a great wake up call for some people. And it was fun.
It's kind of like a physical embodiment of like going through the acceptance part, right? Because the acceptance part is really
right. I mean, because you repress so much of that in the abuse cycle, and that you don't want to recognize that, because I truly believe that even if you are in a cycle of abuse, you can absolutely still love that person. It might not be, the healthiest form of love, but here we love someone, we have rose-colored glasses on, we repress things that, negative things that they do to us, especially with the narcissists.
Yeah, and even just like the memories of like good times, that also becomes really hard. This idea of like, even if it's like romantic relationships or friendships or family, that it's like you have been with this person for possibly so long that you had all different types of experiences. So you're trying to hold on when you haven't accepted yet, that you're trying to kind of think of these memories. And when you're trying to look back, it's like you are thinking with that rose-colored glasses, and you are like trying to almost convince yourself like, no, it couldn't possibly be abuse. It couldn't possibly be this, that, and third, because, I have all these positive experiences with a person. I have all these positive memories with them. But really, you have to step back, to have to really like look at the full picture of like, I can have these handful of good memories, but that still doesn't negate the facts that, this person is harming me on like a day-to-day basis. They're harming my mental health. They're harming my physical being potentially. Oh, so yeah,
absolutely. I think too, just another thing that I kind of thought of when we were talking about this is so many of the things that go wrong that we repress is those sort of relationships. Our abuser makes it somehow our fault. Okay, if you didn't do this, then I wouldn't have to do that. So we start to rationalize that in our brain. Okay, if I just change this, then things will get better. If I just do this, then things will get better. But if we take a step back and look at it not through such like an emotional lens, which is so hard in a situation like that, but put on like our logical glasses, and that we begin to realize that, okay, like this isn't going to get better. And for me, that was the logical glasses came on during therapy. So
yeah. And having a professional, especially like guide you through that also really helps, especially like a third person point of view, someone who is far removed than your abuser. The fact that they can kind of just concretely say, like, these are bad things that you are going through. And it sounds so simple, the idea of just like, you think that you would know it and that you would be able to leave and that it would be, it's easier said than done, though, because emotions get so twisted in it. And then you have the gaslighting and then you have the fear, and it so intertwines, and it makes the logic and the emotion just intermingle in a way that is so difficult to navigate, especially when you don't have help available.
I totally agree. So the next topic that I want to talk about or touch on is going to be red flags, whether that be anger related or other forms of red flags that can lead to the cycle of emotional abuse and quite possibly physical abuse.
Yes, there's the more obvious ones that are more anger related, I would say, like, taking your anger out on your surroundings or people or things, and creating a hostile environment, creating tension in a room, using that tension as a form of manipulation. But then there are also things like lacking respect for your partner, lacking in communication, disrespecting boundaries, whether they be smaller or larger, because boundaries are very important and they're very concrete in a relationship. And so when you are, disrespecting boundaries, or you are, getting angry at somebody for having boundaries, then it's really hard to build a foundation and build trust in a relationship in that regard.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think boundaries are so incredibly important, and making sure you have someone that not only respects your boundaries, but understands them and why they're important to you. And also, too, that boundaries are subject to change.
Yes.
Like that you can change your mind at any time, and that, and obviously that goes with the consent conversation and everything to surround that. But as well, just your personal boundaries and like how you are feeling at that point in your life. Like for me, I have, over my course of college, I've become a little more introverted, I would say. I've realized that, not in a bad way, I just have realized that the going out scene is not necessarily my favorite thing to do all the time.
Yeah.
And having friends that respect that and are like, okay, Anna's going to come out for 30 minutes and we know she's going to leave, and that's totally fine. We're just glad I have her for 30 minutes. And at the same time, too, like in my current relationship, I'm so grateful to have someone that understands my social anxiety.
Yes.
And anytime that I turn to Gunnar and I'm like, I'm ready to do, okay, let's Irish goodbye and go home. And I really, really appreciate someone like that who understands, like, okay, I've had my fun, but I've reached my point of I just want to go home, and not in a I had a bad night way or I'm sad. I'm just like, I'm done. My social battery is tapped out, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think that's something that I learned to appreciate, especially over the last year in the relationship that I'm in, but also realize that I, have had friendships and romantic relationships that didn't respect those boundaries, where I didn't even realize that was something that I didn't love to do, and that I do have a really big social battery, until I surrounded myself with people that respect that and can key in on those things and find other ways to, spend time together than just like partying it up all the time, which I think is a hard thing to recognize, especially when you're in college. So just like, that's what you do, especially in normal cool set everyone. There's not much that you do. So that is
You are kind of forcing yourself in that regard, but social battery is so important. I am also a major introvert. I have been my entire life. And having a partner that really understands the social battery is so important. And it was a very prominent thing, especially whenever me and my husband got married, that we kind of had a bigger wedding because he has a much larger family than me. And when we were having people come in, especially like week of wedding, I was very big on, I can go to some outings, I can see some people before and after, but I also have a very low social battery, and I want to save as much of it as I can for the day of the wedding, because that is a huge, big thing that your whole day is just social interaction. And so I wanted to preserve it as much as I can, and having a partner that was a big advocate for me in that regard, in as far as, if I was explaining it and someone wasn't understanding, and he was very concrete of like, no, this is what Mikayla needs. This is what we are going to do, because this is in preservation of her mental health and her well-being, especially with a big thing coming up.
Right.
And that was huge. And that was a huge important thing for me. The idea that having a partner to where I don't have to explain the complexities of how a social battery works, and he just understands it. And he's more extroverted than me. He is not as much of a little little social butterfly. He loves talking to people. And so having a difference and him understanding that difference, huge. A life changer. Absolutely a huge game changer. For sure. So what would you say is the difference between healthy disagreements in relationships and more manipulative or anger fueled disagreement?
I think this can be such a wide range of things, and it can be as simple as, like respecting each other's likes and dislikes, and then also going as far to like say, arguing or not arguing. Disagreement is healthy in a relationship, but to an extent. It's normal, natural human thing to do to disagree about things.
Just down to come.
Yeah, exactly. However, if it's about specifically behavior, in my opinion, and okay, if I sit down with my partner or a friend and I'm like, hey, okay, you did this the other day and it made me feel like this, and they're first of all not receptive to it, and very like denying the situation and not accepting, okay, like I may not understand why you feel this way, but I am recognizing that you feel this way and that it, wasn't a positive thing for you and that it's something that I need to work on.
Yes.
So, and that's so different too than just, shutting a situation down and being, I'm not talking about this, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And on top of that too, even if the person is receptive in that conversation, if the behavior does not change and the behavior repeats itself, then that's a whole nother issue too. And that's another, form of manipulation and disagreements. But like I said, it can be simple stuff too. Like, I don't like the same things necessarily, all the same things that my boyfriend likes. So we have some common interests. So we, share those common interests, but also allow each other to have our own things too. Like one of my favorite things to do is, if he's very into video games, I've never picked up a video game controller in my life. Actually, it's not into video games, but he's a boy still. He likes those sort of things. And I really like shopping.
Yes.
He hates that. So if he's going to have his time playing, whatever video game he wants to play, then I have my time shopping, and we're fine just existing in each other's company without forcing each other to, really, really like whatever the other person is doing. And, we have those common interests, but we also have those times of, okay, this is like my time and this is me stuff. And I'm happy that you're happy doing that. And I'm going to do my own thing over here too.
Yeah, I would say that me and my husband have the same thing, as he is a very sports-oriented person. I am not at all a sports-oriented person. I never interacted with sports until I was dating him. But he likes to go to games. He likes to watch games. And I like to see him in his element. Yeah. We both really like to see each other really shine in our hobbies and in our interests. And so I've traveled for games. I've woken up early for games. I've done road trips for games, and I wasn't interested in the slightest about it. But it's the fact that it made my partner happy. That's what made me happy about it. And it wasn't that he was forcing me to do it. It was more that he would enjoy it. I was there. I recognize that. And I am happy seeing him in his element and enjoying that with him. And vice versa. I have gone to academic conferences where I have had, a great time in my little bubble, and he has driven with me. He has gone to these huge conferences that he couldn't care less about, but he wanted to see me in my element. He wanted to see me presenting my work and everything. And so that's where we kind of have that. And we also do this in our own spare time, but we also like to come together to see each other and to help each other. And I think that another big thing is that, like, with me and him have this thing where we tell people that we don't fight and that we don't really have arguments with each other. And people never believe us. They always think that, a couple's going to fight, a couple is going to argue. And while it is normal to have disagreements, I think we don't really argue or fight because we are very heavy communicators. And so whenever we are doing a thing, we kind of explain it to each other, like, this is a thing I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it, et cetera, et cetera. And so we understand where the other person is coming from. And our values and our morals and everything within that realm are the same. And we know that. So it's okay to have maybe small disagreements on like how we would go about things. But the core of it is the same. So it makes it just a more like communicative thing. Or if it's like, hey, I didn't really like that you did XYZ thing, or I didn't like XYZ situation. We are very good on coming at it with kindness and coming at it in a way of respect, in a sense that I'm not doing this to put you down. I'm doing this to kind of take some tension off me, or to help each other understand each other better in that regard. And that's where I think that those healthy communication skills, that is the big difference between that and fighting each other and like yelling at each other and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that many young people struggle with is like, okay, I know all these things not to look for, but what do I look for?
Yes.
And speaking from experience, one of the biggest differences that, has made that distinction between a healthy versus an unhealthy relationship is looking for someone with emotional intelligence. Yes. Which all goes back to what you were saying about, how you navigate disagreements in relationships, where it's more of, I think it is so much more comfortable and relieving and comforting. Whatever I was saying. To be in a relationship with someone that whenever you have a quote unquote disagreement, it's a conversation rather than an argument. Yes. Where you're equally hearing each other out and you're saying, okay, I may not agree with why you did this, but I understand why you did because you explained that to me for your point of view and from, how your head and brain works and navigates through relationships.
Yeah, because it's what it really should be is that you should come together and it should be like you versus the situation, not like you guys against each other because of the situation. And I think that that's really hard when you when tensions are high, or when you are used to more negative or abusive dynamic of if it's a situation that is causing a problem, it's like you're putting the situation with the person instead. Right. It's if you're letting out all of this anger and negativity at you, person, when really it should be, we are having a problem about a thing. Let's come together to figure out a solution for the thing together. And that is what makes it a more healthy dynamic. And that's what makes it a more easier dynamic, honestly. Because me and my husband, we joke all the time about the idea that it would just be, situations would be so much easier in relationships when you just talk it out. And when you talk it out with kindness, with respect, and you just kind of lay flat the situation at hand, then it's a lot easier, because then you understand the dynamic that's going on. You can come to a solution a lot easier. And then it's not, tensions aren't building, anger doesn't build up as much. It makes everything more comfortable in that regard.
Definitely. So the next topic I want to talk about, we've touched on a little bit, but I really want to dive deeper into codependency and how it can show up in relationships, either romantic, friendship, family, all of the above.
Yes, it is. It's a very unhealthy dynamic when you are latching yourself on with another person. And this can be both accidental or purposeful. You can either fall into a dynamic of codependency where, maybe you haven't seen friends or family in a long time. Maybe you live far away from people and your partner is the only person, or maybe your like friend group, your roommates or whoever are the only people that you're around, and it can kind of cause like codependency. Or it could be more abusive, the idea of we had touched on isolating.
Yeah.
And that you can kind of, narcissists and abusers can slowly chip away at surrounding people and cause this codependency where you are drifting more to them for anything and everything.
Yeah.
And that it's intentional, that they make themselves everything in your world to isolate you from everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a thing that I've realized as I've gotten older and just gone through different friendships and relationships is that having your own thing, yes, your own sense of uniqueness and things. Okay, this is my thing, and this, and not in like a malicious way at all, but it's just like having hobbies and things that you care about and that are important to who you are as a person, versus your relationship or this friendship being your only source of happiness.
Yes.
If how that codependency develops, because then you're essentially, every time you're not with them, or you're not talking to them on the phone or texting them, that can be a friendship or a relationship.
Yes.
You are depressed and unhappy and feel sad and alone.
Where you get really anxious and feel like you can't really move about the world.
Yes.
Without that person next to you all the time.
Yeah. I think finding that sense of dependency within yourself before you're able to invest into other people is so important. Absolutely. And then that's, something that I really had to dig into through therapy, is that I didn't depend on myself at all. I depended entirely on other people, and different people throughout my life for all of my, happiness, but then also all of my decision making. And yes, that made me who I am. I didn't know who is Anna without this person or that person. And now I, can say that, okay, I know exactly who I am, but I also know who these other people are in my life, and we add to each other's life. And absolutely, like, a partner or a friendship can be a source of happiness for you, but it should not be your only source of happiness, because once that starts to be your only source of happiness, it's, the same thing as a drug addict or an alcoholic. You get addicted to that person and what they give you. And specifically with a narcissist, they're giving you these little crumbs of, of happiness or of, like validation. Yeah. So you, again, like, you get addicted to those little crumbs of validation and happiness. And so that's what you continue to crave. You get that, and then they deplete you until you have nothing left. And then finally, when you're about to leave, they throw you another crumb.
Yeah.
And so that's what you still notice. Exactly. Yeah. That's why it's so hard to break out of that cycle, whether it be like, an unhealthy friendship or an unhealthy relationship. But once you, and I want to go back to, like, one of the most important things I did for myself was learn how to be happy alone. Not in a relationship. And I see this as speaking more of like a romantic standpoint, but learning how to be happy within just myself and spending time with my friends and appreciating those platonic relationships that I had in my life was what led me to choose, the partner that I'm with today, and the healthy relationship that I have today. And just the dynamics and all of that, because that spending time by yourself and figuring out, okay, who am I and how can I be happy, just me, is what develops that emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. I could say the same thing, in the idea that I think it's very important to make it to where if you see this in like a relationship that's romantic type of way, it should be two individuals coming together, not that you are like melded as one. Because, again, my husband has things that he's interested in that I'm not, and vice versa. And, he has friends that are his friends. I have friends that are my friends. Or we'll hang out with each other's friends and everything. But our lives are not so intertwined that it's just one.
Yeah. You should be able to do things without each other. We else having a, anxiety attack or complete meltdown because you don't know what to do with yourself without that person.
Exactly. And you should be able to be your own person. You should be able to have your own hobbies. You should be able to have your own work that is like separate from them as well. And you should be able to, again, be comfortable with being alone. And I think that in particular, I started dating my partner when I was younger, in my early 20s. And I think that a lot of young couples in particular struggle with that because they're developing as people at the same time that they're developing their relationship. Right. And so those things kind of intertwine with one another. Like there's this famous TikTok couple. I don't know if I should like outright say them in, but they have a podcast and they got together really young. They got married when they were young. And this partner like openly said, she was like, I don't know who I would be without you. Right. I don't even know who I would be as a person. I don't know what my life would look like without you, because we had dated and we got married so young that you have shaped my entire adulthood. Right. And that, to me, like, I was thinking about that in terms of what makes my relationship, I think, healthier, and even getting married younger than I expected, was the fact that we are still individual people. And I'm not developing my personhood at the same time as my relationship. We were pretty good about that. We still are. And I think that you really need to make that hard line, especially if you are in like a long-term committed relationship with somebody earlier in your life, that you still need to be your own person. Yeah. And you still need to figure yourself out and figure out what works with you without feeling like you're limiting yourself to just this person and like just their interests or just their, occupation or hobbies or French group or like family dynamics or things like that.
Yeah, I agree.
So we've been talking about red flags and kind of more negative aspects to look out for. What are some green flags or healthy dynamics in both relationships and friendships that you think are very important?
I think one of the biggest things is finding someone who is a good listener is so important. And for me, that's been especially important in both my friendships, but specifically my relationship. I am a terrible anxiety that can be debilitating at that. And I am someone that has to talk it out, and I don't necessarily want your opinion though, but it's a good thing. Yes. It's been so beneficial to be with someone who is such a good listener and is so patient and knows what to say, the right things at the right time. And then also just when to, like, quite frankly, shut up and talk, and just let me get these thoughts out of my head and into the universe so I can move on with my life, And at the same time, though, even though I can be that way, I've had to consciously work on being a listener as well, and I feel like I can be a good listener at times, but I personally, and I'll recognize that I struggle with, and this is the ADHD in me, that someone's talking about something and, it may be a deep or hard conversation, but oh my gosh, this one time this happened to me, and then this is how I worked through it, and I need to tell them how I worked through it so I can help them. And it never comes out of like a malicious place. Yeah. But I realized, like, okay, I so appreciate that my boyfriend gives me that just sense of quiet and space to then that I need to consciously be working on giving him that too. He's not somebody that necessarily likes to like put all their feelings out in the world as much as I do and talk about things. He's a little more like, he internalizes things, but in a healthy way. He just likes to, work through them kind of a little bit more on his own rather than with someone else. That's fair. When he does talk about things, like, I need to, be that same kind of, okay, like, I may not agree with this, but just because I don't agree with something he's saying or I don't understand it, that doesn't mean that I get to interject or like invalidate their feelings and
change the way that ASAP is perceiving.
Yes, it's not my ground to change that conversation and to change what we're talking about. I need to respect his boundaries just as much as he respects mine.
And boundaries are very exact. Having those healthy structures of putting boundaries in place, respecting those boundaries. We touched on it before, but again, to emphasize, having healthy boundaries is very important. You are allowed to have boundaries, and people should respect your boundaries. And that is what makes healthy dynamics. It's what proves that it's a healthy dynamic, honestly. It's the idea of, if I have kind of these ground rules, essentially, are you able to follow along with them? Or are you just going to walk all over them? Or are you going to be upset that I have these boundaries? Or even in a more coercive way, the idea of almost trying to talk you out in some boundaries. That is something that I've also come across as far as negative traits. And so the idea of respecting someone and what they need is very important. And that can show up in relationships, friendships, family, any kind of dynamic that you have with a person.
Definitely. Another thing that I kind of want to talk about is, or, speak on is the importance of having a partner that wants to get to know the people in your life that you deeply care about.
Yes.
And, and that, obviously it's a little different whenever it's just maybe a surface level friend, but genuinely caring about understanding and, not just meeting, but understanding and forming a relationship with the people that are, your lifelong friends, very close with your family. At least for me, my sister and my mom are my two best friends in the whole world. And I value their opinion deeply. They've always been right about literally everything, and that's happened in my life. And so it was very important to me to find someone that, values that relationship that I have as much as I do, and wants to get to know them and wants to know why these people are so important to me, because, the person that's right for you is going to care about the things that you care about, and not necessarily they don't have to have all the same likes and interests as you, but they care about them because you enjoy them, and they enjoy seeing you happy and fulfilled. And that's you have to make sure you're it's a give and take thing too. Like, if it's going to go one way, it's got to go the other.
Yeah, great. Absolutely. That was a very big thing for me whenever I was dating my husband, was his attention to my friends and how safe my friends felt with him.
Yeah.
Especially because I have a lot of queer friends. And so their safety around a straight cisgender man is so important to me in particular, especially in those early stages. And I think two big things that really solidified for me, that I was in a healthy relationship and that this was the one for me, was one time we had a birthday party, and I think it was the first birthday party I had with him and my friends. And it was late at night, and my friend was able to drive back home ambulance because we had gone out to eat and then had hit the bars after. And he had suggested for her to take her home. And I just remember feeling so good about the idea, because they felt comfortable going in their car and being dropped off. And so it felt so good, the idea that it's I have a boyfriend that is not only willing to take my friends home, but that my friends feel safe getting in his car without me, because I was, driving away afterwards. And then another thing was whenever I was planning my wedding, and my best friend lives in a different state, and I wanted her to come for a bachelorette thing. And we were going to have it here in Oklahoma. And she just financially, the trips, airports, and all of that, she had come to me and was like, hey, I don't know if I have enough money to come on this trip. And I was getting really sad about it. And he went out of his way to pay for everything, her flights, her, she was going to stay over at all place. I mean, making sure that she could be able to come, and just laid it flat for me of I paid for her ticket. I have arranged this for her, all this. It was so heartwarming, the idea of having a partner that takes that initiative and knows that this is very important to me, to be able to see my friend and be able to hang out with as many available friends as I can. And if money is in the way and that he's able to fix it, it wasn't even a question to do that. And that was so impactful to me, because he had not even met her, because they have lived in different states. And so the fact that it's a friend that he has not even met, that is willing to do this for me, that was just like, it was so fulfilling. The idea that I have a partner who cares about the people that are the closest to me and knows that showing love to me is showing love to my people as well.
Yeah.
That was a very big thing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, viewers, for watching and listening. Please feel free to share your thoughts, opinions, personal stories in the comments. We would love to hear them. And just a quick reminder that when you're looking for relationships, you shouldn't be looking for the perfect person, but somebody that supports you, loves you, cares about you, and someone you feel safe with, whether that is a partner or a friend. So we'll see you next month. Bye.